You're listening to Work It Mommy, where the goal is for all ladies to be the best versions of ourselves. And if we happen to be moms, be the best mom ever and maintain our sanity while we do it. Ladies, today I am going to have so much fun with this episode because I am interviewing an amazing mom. And I'm so excited for this episode. And this is an episode for all ladies because the information we're going to talk about today is information that we all need to know. Maybe it's our personal situation, or maybe we know someone in this situation. And the reason is because we need to be tolerant and understanding as each other with each other as women so that we can help each other and really be supportive. So today we're actually going to be talking with Laura Torres. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yes. And the reason that I have you here today is because, of course, we know that many moms are actually single moms. And you happen to be a single mom that I know pretty well, and you're amazing. And so my whole thing with bringing you on today is just for you to share some tips with all moms, because these are good tips for all moms, whether you're a single mom or not, but especially for the single moms. So that, because I know, with being raised in a single parent family, is not easy. I can relate to it from that point of view. So my first question for you is money management. For some in a single parent family, I know my situation, the money management was always a thing. So what tips do you have for single moms for money management?
Well, I think it's important, of course, to calculate our budget, right? We need to know how much money's coming into the household, writing down all the expenses. I actually have a list of all my bills, and as I'm paying them, I check them. I pay my bills first thing in the month, because even despite of when they're paid, as the money comes in, the bills are getting paid. Calculate how much to put on savings. You have to have savings, especially through COVID. Things can come up, emergencies. I mean, even more so through COVID, because so many things unexpected can happen. And of course, we have an emergency fund. But yeah, and of course you got to have money to spend time with your family. So put that in there, whether it's a meal, whether it's a drive, spending time. So you really have to be balanced with your budget.
Okay, so let me tell you the thing that I like that you said in there, where you said pay your bills at the beginning of the month, no matter when they are due. I think that is huge for everyone because it is so less stressful. Even if it's due on the 6th, just pay it as soon as you get the check. If you can put certain things on auto pay, like I live by auto pay. Like if places don't have auto pay, I won't do business with them for that reason, because I'm like, I don't need the extra stress. So that is a huge one. Now, with the pandemic, you mentioned the pandemic. And because I know you, I see that you're so involved with your kids, and you really have so many activities that you do. You even do volunteer work as well, in addition to being a single mom. So how have you been able to manage your schedule, especially because you have teenagers? So they kind of got their own schedules going on too. So what's your tips there?
Well, the pandemic has been very difficult for all of us as parents, but even more so for our children. It's very difficult to keep them entertained because you're trying to keep them safe. Overall, it's safety is important. My circumstances allow me to stay home. I care for my elderly mother. I have two young daughters. One's 13, one's 14, and my baby has special needs. So I get funds for that. And then of course I have my own funds coming in. I do suffer from some emotional issues as well, which at times make it difficult, right? Even balancing time, because I'm trying to cope with my situation. So when it comes to my children, before COVID, I would spend more time with them doing activities. Now during COVID, I have to be more creative. You have to make time for them. When they have appointments, you've got to make time. Priority is of course always your family. Everything else goes around it. I am involved in I am involved fully in volunteer work and teaching people the Bible, getting to know God. I love it. And of course, my family, that's our life. Our life is this type of volunteer work. So it's having to adapt to the different schedule, but even through Zoom, they don't like Zoom. So it's hard to get them to do anything besides kind of, I mean, I don't know if most parents can relate, but our children have been spending more time in the room, kind of
Mhm.
away from us. So you want to try to get them to communicate with you more. And it just takes a lot more work, a lot more effort. But as parents, we have to be creative and reach out to our children, especially through these times.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I have a question about your kid schedule because, they are, different grades and everything. Has there been any challenges with trying to kind of get the family together, maybe for dinner or certain activities at the same time due to the schedules or anything?
So their school schedule, they're homeschooled. They were
Mhm.
homeschooled before COVID. So
Oh,
I was already
nice.
set. Yeah, we had some situations happen at school, and it was better for my kids to be homeschooled. So even
Yeah.
with homeschooling, I always tell the teachers, set the time around the same time. So when one child goes in, the other child goes in. So I try to make it as easy as possible when possible.
Mhm.
When it comes to any appointment, whether it's dental, medical, both of the kids go in together. I try to get them because it's 2 drives. I mean, I have a 13, even with the, especially with COVID, we have, now my youngest has her own doctors.
Mhm.
So we have to make time even through Zoom or even get her to do anything. So it's a struggle getting
Mhm.
them to do anything. Because I do suffer with some emotional issues. My family doesn't do things as normal. I want to say normal because we don't just sit down to eat. We're like in a table.
Mhm.
We sit near each other.
Okay.
Because we just, I mean, I don't know if I want to say we want our own space, but it's something that it's not sitting down at the table. We're all sitting there communicating. We do things. And if my mom's not feeling well, she might eat in her room. A lot of the times, so it's not traditional because
Mhm.
it's just never, it used to be that way, but it just kind of changed and it hasn't drifted back. So it's kind of like we just eat together, but not maybe at the kitchen table. We're just near each other.
I think that that is great, because, not every family dynamic is the same. I think we have this idea in our head from society that, we got to have mommy and daddy at the table and everybody sitting perfectly and the fork on the right side and it's got to be at a certain time. But, we are living in modern times and that picture might not work for every family. And I think that's okay because the thing that I get from you 100% is you spend a ton of time with your kids and you are there for them. You prioritize them as number one in your life. So, however that looks for each mom, each family, I think that's okay. And I think we have to all, accept each other, that way and be understanding and helpful, where we can. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. It's different. Okay, so we kind of touched on some things there about scheduling and budgeting. Now, since you are a single mom, I do want to talk a little bit about co-parenting. I feel like co-parenting, I was reading like an article online, and there's, of course, some blogs and Instagrams and stuff that I follow that a lot of single moms and all types of moms follow. And from my personal experience growing up in a single parent family, and having friends and other people who are single parents, the co-parenting thing is challenging. You know what I mean? It's not easy. um it's a shame, most of the time, men can be just very difficult. They don't want to hold up their end of the bargain. They don't want to be an involved father. It's just very hard. And so, us women are having to a lot of the times pick up the slack and deal with these challenges. But I want to kind of ask you, what was co-parenting like for you, and what is your situation now? How, what tidbits do you have for us there?
I actually don't have to deal with co-parenting. I haven't dealt with co-parenting since my kids were 3 and 5.
Okay.
But when I did, it was very difficult, very, very difficult. He was very unreasonable. It was about what he wanted. And I mean, it was very, very difficult. But there were situations that had happened when they were very young. And I had to go to court to protect my children, couple of serious accusations. And so I don't have to deal with co-parenting. He actually gave up his visitation rights in court.
Mm.
Which made it easier because he really wasn't a good guy. I mean, I did love him, of course, I
Mhm.
love him. He's the father of my kids, but he started making really bad choices, and I was more scared of my kids' safety. And so there was, like I said, some accusations that were done, and so I had to fought in court for a year. It was very hard. If any parent has ever had to fight for the safety of their kids, it's the worst feeling in the world.
Terrifying.
You lose yourself. You somewhere on the line you lose yourself, and I had lost myself in between. And of course I had loving counselors that were there to help me, guide me, in a sense, share encouraging thoughts even from the Bible, because the Bible is
Mhm.
very important to me. And it helped me through, but I truly, it was the worst feeling in the world. So at the time that this happened, that he gave up his visitation rights and I no longer co-parent, my kids were 3 and 5.
Mhm.
My youngest didn't really get to spend a lot of time with her dad, so there wasn't that deep connection, or there really wasn't that connection that you would want a child to have for the dad. Now the oldest one did. The oldest one struggled with the change. Now every other weekend you see dad. Now we don't see dad.
Mhm.
Of course, because of the ages, I
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
very careful in what I shared, because I don't want to ever make the other parent seem like a horrible person.
Mhm.
But I had to give them enough information, like just to make them make them know that they're loved, but it's not their fault,
Right.
and that it's for their safety. And this was something that he made. And at the time that he told the judge, it was like, well, I'm working a lot, I can't see my kids. And I was fine with that because there were serious charges involved.
Mhm.
So that's what I would tell my kids. I'm like, he's working so much, he can't see you. um and little by little they stopped asking. Little by little it kind of became, and he didn't reach out to them, even though he could have
Mhm.
called, he never called. So it kind
Horrible.
of it kind of helped with the emotional aspect. And now my kids are, again, 13 and 14, and they can't even remember their dad. They
Mm.
don't have a relationship with him. He even though he gave up his visitations, he could have still called, he didn't call. So there's no connection with them. So it made it difficult in the beginning of this process. But my children, because of the type of man he was, and the fact that he was a very he didn't care for the children as he should have, it's better this way. um,
Mhm.
and so
Mhm.
now, I don't have to consult anything. I just do the best that I can as a single mom to care for my children, when it comes to all aspects, without having to really co-parent. It's a decision that I have to make for the children.
And I think you made the right choice. Co-parenting isn't always going to work, with certain circumstances. Like you said, if it's for the safety of the children, it really is the best thing. And it's unfortunate that this is a position that a lot of women find themselves in, because the men, a lot of them just don't have the guidance and the direction that they need to be the type of fathers they need to be. And it's an epidemic. It's like, come on, man, get it together. Why are you doing this? And so it's just ridiculous. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. But I can tell, and from what I've seen, I feel like single moms, they get to this point where they just have this amazing, like, just strength, that is just undeniable, because now you are taking on two roles, in essence, and you do it so well, and it's not easy. So I definitely want to commend any single mothers out there. Keep doing what you're doing, keep putting your children first, because they will appreciate it. Because once they grow up, and this is me giving you the future, what you're going to hear from your kids. I saw what my mom did. They don't get it then, but when they grow up, they go, wow, look at what my mother did for me by herself. And I can guarantee you, every single mother is going to hear that at some point in their life. It might be, when they get much older, but you're going to hear that, and you're going to have that validation, like, yes, I did something good for my children and everything. So now, one thing I wanted to ask you, and, just from me recalling being in your kid's position was I can remember the custody and, when that was all being decided and, we had to travel to a different state because at that point we didn't live in the same state as my father. And I remember going to the courtroom and there was nobody there in that seat, and it as a child, it was like, dang, he don't actually care, like, and so I can remember that feeling very distinctly in my head. Like, I was expecting to see two people state why, they wanted to be involved, but it was just my mom, and everybody that was on her side. And I was so thankful for all those who were there. How did your children, and maybe they're not old enough yet to get to that realization or what have you, but how did you coach them through that realization that, your father does not actually, you know, have the level of care or concern for you that he should?
Well, in my situation, my kids were 3 and 5. So our goal was not to go and take them to court. So they actually, when the charges came through, they were assigned their own lawyer. Me and the father both paid for their lawyer. So my kids did talk to everything that it involved around it, but they never stepped into court. They were very young, even to today. My youngest can't remember a lot of stuff. She still can remember a few things. My oldest doesn't remember a lot of stuff. It was very young, but we never made it to court because that was the goal of ours, is try to get things resolved before it got to that point. And when I showed up with witnesses and I showed up in front of the judge, and at one point I had no lawyer, I was my lawyer. So I did a lot of research.
Wow.
And I'm talking to people that have been through this, and I'm like, what do I need? And they're like, if you talk to a police officer, get his card, get the reports, put it all in the book. When I tell you, I have a suitcase this big, just of documents but I'm talking about legal stuff, like letters from people. I saw this, I saw that. Your child told me this, your child told me that. I kept it not only for court, but I kept it for my children, because I knew that it happened so young in their age that they wouldn't remember when they became adults. And then the father can turn around and say, your mom took you away from me.
Boy, that's what they do.
I'm thinking ahead, because I'm like, I want my babies to make a decision for themselves, having all the facts. So I have this suitcase. This suitcase is for them. It has everything, even things, pictures of my children, when they were being neglected, taken to doctors and everything like that. So they can have that, so that the father can't turn around and say, your mom did this. And I have no way of proving, because they were so young, they can't remember. Here's all the facts, sweetie. You go through it. I saved it for you.
Wow. Now
I did it for both of my girls.
That is incredible, and thank you so much for sharing that. And that is so smart. Ladies, if you're listening and maybe you are going through this particular scenario right now, make sure you do that, because this is a common thing that the men try to do, turn against the mother, she just took it, wasn't even, and they just omit everything. But when you can come with them and with proof and say, because this happens a lot. I mean, I know several of my friends who, after the fact, just turned on the mom, and then they found out years later that the mom was right. And then they felt bad. You know what I'm saying? So this thing does happen. So protecting yourself, having your facts, and saving those things for your children. And of course, that's going to be something hard for your children to see, but they're going to have to see it at some point, because they're going to have questions and they're going to want to know the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's knowledge is power. But as parents, we have to think ahead. Well, I mean, I took in mind, my kids are very young. My kids won't remember. And their dad is capable of mind manipulation, which most men that we deal with is, have that. And I mean, not saying women don't, but
right.
As mothers, single mothers, we have to think ahead. We have to make, and again, it wasn't easy because even I spoke to people that have gone through this, and they're like, get a suitcase, write this, write that, look up for these situations. Lawyers are not cheap. There's a lot of information that is available to you. It truly is a battle. That's why most people lose themselves. But at the end of the day, it's about the kids' safety. So the fight never goes to waste.
That's right. It's the fight that's worth fighting. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, now we're gonna pivot and